really here. No better person to talk about that with than Dan Senor. He is a former Defense Department official under President George W. Bush, the co-author of 2 books on Israel, and the host of the very popular podcast, Call Me Back. Thank you so much for being here, Dan. Let's start with President Trump talking about this historic dawn of a new Middle East. It's a good day. The bombs have stopped dropping in Gaza. The hostages are all home. We're also realists. So how do you see this going forward?
I have 2 reactions. One is, as you say, the war has stopped, and I have a lot of questions and a lot of concerns about how the 20-point plan will be implemented. But whatever concerns I have from Israel's perspective, they are mollified to some degree by the fact that the IDF is still in Gaza and still in 53% of Gaza. Israel still has a lot of leverage. It still has a lot of options if the implementation of these details go in a direction that is worrisome and alarming to Israel. Israel is not just like giving up its security advantage now that it has in Gaza. So that's one thing to keep in mind. The second thing to keep in mind, which is I think speaks to President Trump and the administration's entire approach to the last few weeks, which is over the last 2 years, every time there has been progress, and then Hamas said, and everyone seemed to be aligned. Israel seemed to be aligned. The U.S. seemed to be aligned. And Hamas would say, yes, but. They'd say, yes, but. And everyone would focus on the but and say, oh, no, the but is the deal killer. And that's why this is not going to happen. And what I think happened here is the Trump administration so shook up the chessboard by saying, we're not going to play this game anymore with phased withdrawals, phased hostages being released, the hostages being trickled out over a long period of time. The only deal that can happen is all the hostages at once at the beginning of a deal. That was like unprecedented. Even I thought this will never happen. And Hamas said, yes, but. And instead of focusing on the but, what Trump did is said, he grabbed the yes. He banked the yes and said, we'll deal with the details later. We'll figure out the but, and but just grabbing the yes. And you see a lot in business negotiations and diplomatic negotiations that you grab onto some momentum, even if it's not complete, even if it doesn't get you the totality of you want, and you just say, okay, I'm going to grab this momentum, and opportunity and momentum beget further opportunity and momentum.
No question.
He grabbed upon. So while I have concerns here,
Go ahead. Go ahead, Dan.
14, 15, 16, 17.
Oh yeah. So he grabbed the yes, and I think that's what he's articulating today. Is like, yeah, there's still a lot that's unanswered here, and there's still a lot to fill out, but he's going to keep grabbing the yeses and dealing with the details later. And I'm not sure that's a bad strategy. I mean, certainly it was a big factor in getting to where we are today.
The question is, he grabbed the yes and he sort of steamrolled over the but, to continue your imagery here. The question is, how is he going to keep that momentum going? Lindsey Graham, who is a big supporter of the president, a big supporter of Israel, put out a statement certainly applauding the president and everything that has happened to get to this point. But he also said that he had a word of caution. As I speak, Hamas is attacking groups that have stood up to them and will purge all opposition if a regional stabilizing force is not deployed quickly. Disarming Hamas and making sure they never have a voice in the future of Gaza is going to require efforts by the region never known before. That is really the key, which is why the imagery from just earlier in this hour of the president in Egypt with most of the key players in the region and in Europe there is just the whole ballgame.
Yeah, and the real question is, will governments from the Arab world, the Emiratis, the Egyptians, whoever else is going to be playing a role in Gaza, here's the real question. Saudis, here's the real uncomfortable question that no one wants to talk about right now. Are they willing to risk the lives of their citizens serving in Gaza? Right, because the IDF can't do this, obviously, as has been articulated for the implementation of the 20-point plan. So it's going to have to be these other governments. So who are these governments going to be the ones sending forces into Gaza as part of this stabilization force to, for instance, disarm Hamas? Who's going to go door to door and take the Kalashnikovs out of young Hamas members' hands? Who's going to go searching for the RPG launchers in these places? And to do so is to risk your life. And the moment nationals, foreign nationals, nationals from places like Egypt and potentially Saudi, the Emiratis, the Emirates, start dying, will these governments have the appetite to stay in Gaza for the sake of the Gazan Palestinians, who, let's be honest, these governments have never really cared that much about?
Nope.
So I do think that's where it does get really complicated. I think Lindsay's right to focus on this issue. The disarmament issue in particular is one that I'm especially concerned about.
Yeah, and I should say that the Egyptian President al-Sisi is speaking right now. We expect him to introduce President Trump as we wait for that to happen. I mean, based on what you know about the Arab world, the one that the president has referred to several times. Oh, you know what? I'm going to interrupt myself, Dan, and we're going to go to President Trump. Thanks for being here. Let's listen.
Listen up!
And I would like to express our profound appreciation to Your Excellency at this critical circumstance reflected in your proposed plan for ending this tragic war, a war during which humanity incurred significant losses. I would like to thank our partners in United States, Turkey and Qatar for their dedicated efforts, and I reiterate our support and aspiration to the execution of this plan, creating the essential political horizon for the implementation of the two-state solution, for it is the only pathway to the fulfillment of the legitimate ambition of both Palestinian and Israeli peoples, turning over the conflict page and safely live. Excellency President, you have demonstrated that genuine leadership doesn't mean war waging, rather the ability to bring it to a halt. We trust your leadership that is capable to carry out the current deal and to execute your entire staged plan. Excellency President, let Gaza war be the last of wars in the Middle East. Majesties, Excellencies, and Highnesses, Egypt launched a peace trajectory in the Middle East nearly half a century ago, specifically in November 1977, when the late President Anwar Sadat, may God shower him with his mercy, took unprecedented steady moves in the history of the region and initiated the historic visit to Jerusalem. Since that moment, Egypt has established a new era.
Okay, it looked like President Trump is making his way over to the microphone as we do wait for that to happen. Kimberly Dozier, your thoughts on where we go from here?
Well, the arm twisting is going to happen with the Israelis to allow the Palestinian Authority to go in and retake Gaza. They are the force that is willing to do this, and the U.S. military has trained Palestinian Authority Special Operations Forces to do this kind of operation. I'm sure that's the message that Arab leaders are going to give, because they'd much rather have Palestinians policing other Palestinians than put their forces in this fight.
And the problem with that is that Mahmoud Abbas, who is the head of the PA, the Palestinian Authority, who was there, unlike Prime Minister Netanyahu, who was invited and then said he didn't want to go because of a Jewish holiday, but he's definitely traveled on Jewish holidays before. There are definitely other political reasons that he's not there. Having said that, there's not a lot of trust across the political spectrum inside Israel, never mind in the White House and in other Western countries, that the PA is up to the task here.
Right. I think sitting in the top desk drawer of a lot of people in the National Security Council and the State Department in all of these Arab countries are plans for reforming the PA, which is a very difficult thing to do because it is corrupt. And a lot of these different countries that we've been talking about have favored factions within the PA that they would like to install. This is a place where if the United States chose to take a leadership role, it would be possible to, I think, get to a different generation of leadership in the PA, one that was willing to do some of the hard things that Abbas has been unwilling to do. then there's this question of the Israelis. And in private, Benjamin Netanyahu has told, American diplomats for a very long time that he's willing to go to this place of embarking on the pathway of Palestinian statehood. But what he says in public and what he says in private are very, very different questions. And then that gets to this other question of what happens in Israeli politics, because there's going to be an election that's down the road,
Right.
and the possibility for a different coalition that would
Inside
be
Israel,
Yeah.
without Benjamin Netanyahu. Dan Senor, I think you're still there. Want to bring you back in.
I am.
Good. Weigh in on this question of who should or could, maybe not should. That's a whole different question. Who could realistically take over inside Gaza to make it a habitable, viable place that isn't run by people who are, just focused on wanting to annihilate Israel and not protect the innocent civilians who are living in their midst.
So there are various clans and families and leaders who've emerged over the years, who've emerged over the last few months. It's the question is, can they build critical mass without getting slaughtered? And from Israeli military planners and policymakers that I've spoken to since October 7th, the question has always been, will there be enough security and stability on the ground in Gaza for these actors to step up and stick their necks out and not risk being slaughtered? And so unless that space is created for them, there's no way it's going to happen. Even if there are people willing to step up. You're even seeing today the images out of Gaza. You're seeing this Hamas slaughtering, these public execution of Gazan Palestinians who they deemed were collaborating with Israel or were not sufficiently loyal to Hamas or were supporting the aid distribution that was independent of Hamas's control, whatever it may be. So until you have basic security, until you have basic stability in Gaza, it's impossible to assess whether or not there are these pockets that have emerged of opposition, of an alternative to Hamas that could actually turn into something broader than pockets, because those don't have a shot at turning into broader than pockets if they're going to get killed.
I was talking to a Republican lawmaker earlier today who said, just point blank, who has been around a long time, who said, nation building is really hard and nobody's very good at it. Dan, I don't want to bring up a sore subject, but you did spend some time in Iraq, firsthand.
It is a sore subject.
But this is totally different. This is totally different. And this is a situation where you do have there are power players in the region, take President Trump out of it. There are power players in the region who have deep pockets. If they want to, stick their necks out and say, okay, we're going to have the will, as you said, hasn't been there for a long time. I mean, go ahead, Dan. Start talking and I'll interrupt you if the president, well, let's see. Is he talking?
We'll find out.
Okay. I'm going to go to the president now. Dan, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and that was a great honor. I appreciate it very much, Mr. President, Mr. General, Mr. President, great General, great President. Thank you very much. This is the day that people across the region and around the world have been working, striving, hoping, and praying for. They have done things over the last month that I think were really unthinkable. Nobody thought this could happen. With the historic agreement we've just signed, those prayers of millions have finally been answered. As you know, the hostages have been returned, and further work goes on having to do with the, sadly to say, bodies. Together we've achieved what everybody said was impossible. At long last, we have peace in the Middle East, and it's a very simple expression, peace in the Middle East, and we've heard it for many years, but nobody thought it could ever get there, and now we're there. And I want to congratulate everybody sitting in these first few rows and standing behind me. I don't know why they chose to stand, but I promise I'll make it short, okay? We are not going to keep you standing for long. These are great leaders. After years of suffering and bloodshed, the war in Gaza is over. Humanitarian aid is now pouring in, including hundreds of truckloads of food and medical equipment and other supplies, much of it paid for by people in this room. Civilians are returning to their homes. The hostages are reuniting. I mean, it's beautiful. I'm just watching it backstage. The level of love and sorrow, I've never seen anything like it. It's amazing when you see they haven't seen their mother, their father. They haven't seen them in such a long time, and they lived in a tunnel, a very little tunnel, very deep. And the level of love is just incredible. It's a beautiful thing to see. It's, in one sense, it's so horrible that it could have taken place, but in another sense, it's so beautiful to see a new and beautiful day is rising. And now the rebuilding begins. The rebuilding is maybe going to be the easiest part. I think we've done a lot of the hardest part because the rest comes together. We all know how to rebuild, and we know how to build better than anybody in the world. I want to express my tremendous gratitude to the Arab and Muslim nations who helped make this incredible breakthrough possible. And you really did. To President El-Sisi of Egypt, who is so generously hosting us today. And I want to thank you for the outstanding job your country is doing in so many different ways and for helping us so much with this peace agreement. I also want to thank the president for the escort of 6 fighter jets. Oh, we looked out the window, we said, I hope they're friendly, and they turned out to be very friendly. But we had 3 on each side, and they are beauties right out of the great, really American manufacturing hub. We make the greatest military equipment in the world. We have the strongest military in the world by far. And I knew exactly what those planes were, and I knew exactly how much you paid for those planes too. You paid a lot, but you got a pretty good deal. And they are great planes, and we just appreciate it. That was quite an escort in. That was very impressive. But Air Force One was really, it was covered with Egyptian desert just a few months ago. If you think about it, just a few months ago, it was Egyptian desert, and now it was just a few feet off our window. And it was a spectacular sight, and I appreciate it very much. Really, it was pretty good. You got our people by surprise. I don't know if they were thrilled right at the beginning, but they were thrilled as we sailed along very, very calmly and safely. And I'm deeply honored to receive from you, Egypt's highest state honor, the Order of the Nile. The Nile is so beautiful, so magnificent. It's such a beautiful title, the Order of the Nile. Thank you very much, Mr. President. Appreciate it. Great honor. I also want to give a very special thanks to the Emir of Qatar, a man who's outstanding. He's been a friend of mine for a long time, long before politics, and he's a fantastically respected man. His Highness Sheikh Tamim is respected by everybody. He's respected by everybody, and in the most positive way, not only because of power, because of his heart. He's got a tremendous heart, and he's a great leader, and his country loves him. Thank you very much for being here. It's an honor. Let me also express our condolences to the Qataris on the tragic car crash that claimed the lives of your cherished diplomats, some of whom were known by our people, and they were supposed to be incredible people. So please extend our sorrow and best wishes. That was tough. That was really tough. On this extraordinary occasion, I also want to give our sincere thanks to President Erdogan of Turkey. He's always there when I need him. He's such a tough guy. He is tough as you can be, but we love him. And when they have a problem with you, they always call me to handle it. And usually I come through. We just have a good relationship, and we have from the beginning. And so I want to thank you very much and say hello to your wife, your beautiful wife. And it's great to be with you. Always there. When I need him, he's always there. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And I also want to thank, I just spoke to him on the phone, His Royal Highness Crown Prince Mohammed, Saudi Arabia, a special friend of mine. Boy, he's come so long and so far, and he's doing a fantastic job for his country. And I want to just thank him. And His Highness Sheikh Mohammed of the United Arab Emirates is here. Where? He's here someplace. Well, oh, he's not here, but he's here in spirit, I can tell you that. And he's been another one. He's been absolutely incredible, and we appreciate it very much. And His Majesty King Abdullah of Jordan, and thank you very much, King Abdullah of Jordan. He's here. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. and you really have been a great help, and we appreciate it. Appreciate it. Prime Minister Sharif of Pakistan, and also I have to say my favorite field marshal from Pakistan, who's not here, but the Prime Minister is here, and you're going
We're going to try to make this as short as possible. It looks like basically he's just showing his appreciation by thanking other heads of state with them coming together toward trying to, I'm going to use this terminology, pull a rabbit out of the hat in regards towards people getting along. And I'm going to go ahead and voice my opinion about what I'm thinking right now, because we have really tremendously went a long, long way since 1983, over 40 years ago, whenever Ronald Reagan was president. He almost got assassinated. And then there throughout the second part of his presidency is whenever he focused on tremendously of Star Wars and etc. But he also focused in on evil empire at that time that was showing its aggression in trying to make the world tremble in fear because of them not wanting to cooperate. Well, it was on the latter part of Reagan's administration was whenever they finally got their foot in the door in convincing the superpowers that the world wasn't going to end by them, but rather it was going to end the way that the Bible had predicted for it to end, pertaining to biblical Bible prophecy. So in essence, we have gone a tremendous far way in comparison to what the tension level was back in the 80s, because you actually had government officials in Russia that was handing out cyanide pills just in case, not knowing if America was going to push the buttons first or they was going to push the buttons first, of a tension level that went beyond most people's comprehension. And I got caught up in that tension level due to the fact that I know that my life had been spared in 1983 for a particular purpose. I just had to find that purpose. So this investigation trail that I've been on hasn't just been in one particular entity or one particular person. It's been a variety of things across the board for the past 40 plus years. But I do want to say this. I feel like, let's listen to just part of this real quick.
Peace Prize because he has brought not only peace in South Asia, saved millions of people, their lives. And today, here in Sharm el-Sheikh, achieving peace in Gaza is saving millions of lives in the Middle East. Mr. President, I would like to salute you for your exemplary leadership, visionary leadership. And I think that you are the man this world needed most at this point in time. World would always remember you as a man who did everything, went out of the way to stop 7 and today 8 wars. I would like to thank my very dear brother, Sheikh Tamim. He's Akh al-Shaqiq, who has really worked very hard along with others to achieve peace in this region. My very dear brother, President Tayyip Erdogan, His Majesty, King Abdullah, and of course my very dear brother, Mohammed bin Zayed of UAE, and of course my very dear brother, Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. And he has also been very, very helpful and contributed very valuably in this wonderful peace process. Ladies and gentlemen, I wouldn't want to take more of your time. Suffice to say, had it not been for this gentleman, not only, who knows, India and Pakistan are both nuclear powers. Had he not intervened along with his wonderful team, during those 4 days, the war could have escalated to a level. Who would have lived to tell what happened? And similarly, here in this part of the world, in Middle East, Mr. President, your valuable contribution along with President Sisi, I think history will remember in golden words. I wouldn't say more, except God bless you, God give you long life to serve like this for all time to come. Thank you very much. Very kind.
Wow, I didn't expect that. Let's go home. There's nothing more I have to say. Goodbye, everybody. That was really beautiful and beautifully delivered. Wow, thank you very much. Also with us is President Prabowo, a very incredible man of Indonesia.
Like I was saying earlier, we have gone so far from, in comparison to what it was like in the 80s, whenever the tension was so high, that finally it was Reagan that convinced the Russian old Soviet Union of tearing down the wall and basically looking at things from a different perspective. I think the reason why that a lot of this has occurred is because of COVID, that has brought that much more tension and tightness to these various countries over there in the Middle East. And I also think the reason why this has occurred is because of God Almighty and using Donald J. Trump as an instrument, a tool of instrument to be able to get the message across.
There they are. Look at them. They're sitting. When I met with them, it was in the Oval Office. They fought for like 31 years or some crazy number. And they had one sitting on that side of the Oval Office, one sitting. By the time we finished in 1 hour, they were both hugging each other. And now they're friends and they're getting.
I do want to say this also. Whenever it comes to the rich of the richest pertaining to the nations coming together, it talks about this prophecy coming true. This very prophecy that's happening right now. For it says that it was as the noise of thunder towards the nations bonding together. But there's one particular entity that I don't agree with towards them saluting or praising that in which what has brought anguish, harm, hurt, pain, agony, and any of the above pertaining to Satan not to kill, steal, and destroy, for he is and was and always will be the author of confusion. The Bible says that it was because of him or it that has delayed the second coming, to the degree that, yes, looking at it from the perspective that the Russian government recently said with President Putin that they had been cheated, it wasn't just that the Russian oligarchs had been cheated, but the world in general had been cheated. They had been cheated because there never was a spiritual great awakening. There never was a spiritual revival that wasn't just supposed to have been intended for the Gentiles, but also for the Greeks and also for the Jews all over the world. It was not supposed to have been ordained of one or two particular church groups or believers here in the United States. It was supposed to have been worldwide. So hopefully what's going on, and I realize they're going to have some resistances. They're going to have some more skirmishes, and I hope that these small fires can be put out fairly quickly. Because all in all, as you've listened to I've been up since 2 o'clock this morning. I was listening to Coast to Coast this morning, and they got to talking about this, and I immediately got up, in which I listen to Coast quite a bit all the time. But usually I sit there and listen to whatever that they're talking about, whether or not I agree with it or not. That's another subject matter. But the fact of the matter is, whenever this was all unfolding this morning at 2 o'clock our time, I got up. I said, you know what? This is important. I want to listen to it. I want to watch it. I want to see what's happening. As I've said before, I feel like as a Christian, an anointed Christian with an anointed message, I feel like that it is my duty to help to micromanage what I'm seeing, what I'm liking, giving out my opinion and being opinionated. And it was right here in Weakley County in 2005 whenever they tried to stifle that. They wanted to shut me up. They wanted to use a charge of falsifying files because of that in which what I had believed or that in which what I had said, in which I didn't say nothing out of character, of that in which what I shouldn't have said, pertaining to there being an explosion of controversy going on in my life. But because I used the word explosion, all of a sudden I was the bad guy, according to Martin, Tennessee. According to their authorities up there in Martin and Weakley County, I was the bad guy. And all of a sudden, that's whenever they tried to change the tables, and they done a really good job in changing the tables, because they come after me again in 2017, shortly after my brother died, and basically incarcerating me. And after I'd done already been beat on, whipped on, poisoned, went from 160 or 180 pounds to almost 380 pounds, or 367 pounds, and being incarcerated as many times as I had been, it was time for me to raise my hands up and say, you know what, if this is what you want to do to me, you do it. You do it, the state of Tennessee. Go ahead and show me your bad side, because this, in all perspective, if you get to following the dots that has went on in my life in 40 plus years, going all the way back to 1983, whenever I tried to seek help in a little town called Kenton, Tennessee, they have been trying to stain me. They have been trying to either announce me as somebody that was crazy, a lunatic, and then after 9/11, they changed their motives in wanting to try to put me in the category of somebody that was a monstrous figure that wanted to do bodily harm to not only the American people, but the world. There has been a constant pattern in my life. I'm 64 years old. I've been engaged in the ministry business now for over half of my life. Over half of my life. And I have sacrificed friends. I've sacrificed family members. I've sacrificed recently a son. I've sacrificed jobs. I've sacrificed embarrassment. I've sacrificed towards being judged inaccurately. I've sacrificed towards being exposed to all these different law enforcement agencies, regardless whether it was Tennessee, Kentucky, Oklahoma, or even, yes, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. I've got a history of patterns where, if you get to looking and analyzing, it began not just in 1983 with Kenton, Tennessee, of Damian Cross, the mayor, but in 1989, after 9 tapes circulated to the White House in 1988, that's whenever Madison County, being chaperoned or supervised by Homeland Security Secret Service in Madison County, Tennessee, basically decided to intervene into a ministry and confiscate something that was at that time only supposed to be used as a teaching aid, which was an aluminum sword valued at about $30 that you would use in some sort of a playwright in Sinbad and the Sailors. It took the officers, give or take, about 30 minutes of using pry bars and screwdrivers to be able to pry the box open, because there was no way that you could get to this particular teaching aid. They threw it in the back end of the trunk. They handcuffed me and charged me with a deadly weapon. And from then on, my life has been basically a roller coaster ride. Basically, my life has been a roller coaster ride ever since I made that telephone call to the White House about me going to be the one to meet the Antichrist, and before the poison arrow struck the flesh of my skin, that I would vanish or disappear, that every molecule on my body would basically be changed instantaneously from mortal to immortal. And that was whenever Gable was going to blow the trumpet. That was going to be whenever the dead in Christ was going to rise first. And that was going to be whenever the rest of us was going to be changed from mortal to immortal in the twinkling of an eye. And all of us was going to go to heaven and live with the Lord Jesus Christ. Since I made that telephone call, you can look at the dots in where I've been and what I've done and what others have tried to do in a open illustration of how various people was dead set that they wanted to harm me or hurt me or destroy me in some form or fashion, whether or not it was physically, whether or not it was emotionally, whether or not it was metaphorically. But you can look at the span of my life and put the dots together, and you have a pattern of evilness that has unfolded in America in the past 30 plus years like I've never ever imagined. And like I said, if anybody has been cheated, it's all of us. All of us have been cheated because there should have already been a revival. There should have already been a revolution. There should have already been peace established upon to the earth, because before you can open up the second seal of the Red Horseman, there has to be peace to take. And right now, not only America, but the whole world has been thrown off into chaos. And I still say that COVID had a great deal to do with this, because it really, really opened a lot of people's eyes. Now, granted, the people over in the Middle East and the people in other parts of the world, maybe they're a little bit slower about seeing things than what others are. But I think maybe finally somebody has opened their eyes up and realizing that, my God, if we continue on this path that we're on, we will eventually destroy ourselves. And that was the very thing that Ronald Reagan explicitly told the superpowers was not going to occur.
It's going to be a great tribute to really the United States. I mean, the United States has worked very hard in the Middle East, so it would be a tribute to us and to Jared and to Steve and to all of the people, Marco, all of the people that have worked so hard on that.
The tribute belongs to God. The tribute belongs to God's only begotten Son, Jesus Christ of Nazareth. The tribute belongs to all the miracles that's not only went on in my life, but in all of our lives, in knowing that we're only here for a short purpose, for a short time, and it's up to us through Christ in making the right decisions, in which I'm not sitting here telling you that I've made all the right decisions, because I know that I haven't. I've made mistakes, just like everybody else. But whenever our government basically plays the game towards do as I say and not as I do, whenever it becomes this dysfunctional, then you have basically a shut down government like we're facing right now. Of course, it's been accused of shutting down, I guess, for probably 70, 75, maybe 80 different times since all this malarkey has come about. But it is time for people to quit playing games, because it is going to affect human beings' lives all over the planet. It is only through and by the Almighty that any of us are still here. Because you keep in mind, at one swat, it could all be over with for all of us. We're talking about the one that created the heavens and the earth. We're talking about the one that spoke very plainly to the world in his ministry, that said that it would have been easier for all of heaven and easier for all of earth to have passed than for one jot or one tittle of the word thy God to fail. And I'm telling you right now, at the age of 64, the American people should take it on the cheek towards wearing egg on their face that they was part of the reason why all these other countries are struggling right now, including ourselves, including having unsafe streets, including having all the other problems that we're facing off on. Because why? Because they wasn't willing to unite. They wasn't willing to rally. They wasn't willing to come together. They wasn't willing to become socially involved in each other's lives. Because, I mean, the Bible's very clear in saying that as you shall tangibly see the days approaching, forsake not the assemblies of thyself together. It's going to become more and more essential as we get further into this thing towards basically, it says in the Bible that the stars in the heavens will roll up as a scroll, but as the world is basically falling apart because of the things that we're doing to it right now, basically regurgitating itself up onto us because of us not listening and draining all the precious resources out of the ground, it's just a matter of time before we're going to see devastation such as mankind has never seen before. Now, this is not a message that I have chose to want to either like or patronize people over, because I'm just the messenger. I'm the messenger to the main message, which is based out of John 3:16. But there's more to the Bible other than just John 3:16. A matter of fact, there's a whole lot more to the Bible other than John 3:16. John 3:16 is the topic of our salvation. But there's so much more that the people locally missed. And I'm talking about people that has read the Bible and studied it and got good education, that some of them has businesses, some of them are as intelligent as you can think of, but they swung at it and missed it by 3 foot. Now, who blinded them? Was it the founder of Jubilee's Windmill Ministries? No, no, no. Not at all. They allowed for the trickery of the devil to blind them because they focus more on the latter part of Revelations chapter 6 verses 3 and 4 rather than the first part. And then they wanted to provoke me into them not doing their jobs properly in this county, state of Tennessee. And now it is backfired on them, and there's no way that they can deny it, because all of them had the opportunity that they could have supported the very individual that has been preaching and teaching and telling people about love, grace, mercy, all the other things that the Bible teaches, as well as in time biblical Bible events. Now, they can continue to ignore me. They can continue to degrade me. They can continue to dehumanize me by demonizing me if that's what they choose to do. But I got news for them. What they have been a part of right here in Northwest Tennessee has failed. It has failed from A to Z, regardless whether it was just your average old Joe or some of your smartest people in the world. It has failed, and now the remorse has fell upon to the world, and I truly believe that it has and harshly and regrettably, it has taken this long to put us in this precarious position that we're in. It has taken something like this before people are willing to listen. People are willing to open their eyes. People are willing to start to think about the inedible. And I'm telling you right now, the Arab Spring that was so headstrong and power hungry, going all the way back after World War II, they was the very ones that has placed nations under this type of anxiety. People's lives have been ruined on account of the Saudi government. Now, you can take that for what it's worth. You can play your little fiddle towards butting up with all the rich people, all the people wearing their little rag heads over their head and still getting around on camels or whatever. Or you can listen to somebody that's telling you the truth of the individuals that I met on 3 different levels up here in Weakley County in Martin, Tennessee. It's up to you. It's no longer up to me. The message has not changed. It's not going to change. And I'll take it to my grave, and that'll be it. And then ultimately, whenever we all do get resurrected from the dead, and we're standing around this big circle or in front of God's great altar, I'm going to present my case before God. And the angels of God will declare of it either being truthful or untruthful. And at that point in time, people either directly or indirectly will give an account for not only that in which what they have been a part of toward what that they have done, but they will give an account for the things that they didn't do, that they know that they should have done, and they're still not doing it. Good luck to all of us. God bless America. God bless our troops. And God bless our endeavors towards which way we go from this moment on. Because I promise you, it could all be turned around at a flip of a switch. Or, I promise you, it could all be destroyed at one swat pertaining to the Heavenly Father that created all this. But Christ said that it would have been easier for heaven and earth to pass than one jot or one tittle to pass, indicating that it has been hard. It has been a struggle. It's been a struggle for me to survive. It's been a struggle for me to be able to prove my sanity. It's been a struggle for me to be able to illustrate to people who I am and what I am. And it's been a struggle in basically all these demons coming at me and trying to provoke me, or for these authority figures and not doing their jobs right, that should have been right there at the same altar that I was at. The altar of God. But instead, they thought it was cute. They thought it was fun. They thought it was hilarious. They thought it was comical. Well, it ain't that comical no more, is it, Northwest Tennessee? It ain't that comical no more, is it, America, pertaining to seeing all the grief and destruction and the horror that has fallen into innocent people's lives? Shalom. God bless.